Okay, the stream should be back out now. Sorry about that random crash. That's because of my graphics drivers. So in case you see that happen again, just stick with me for a few minutes. I'll relaunch the sim just because every time because random crashes just keep crashing my graphics card drivers. My card is probably screwed. So that randomly happens, but yeah, nothing I can do about it. So where were we? Oh yeah, the scissors. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a less than a second replay just in case I have to deal with the same car again, adjust the car cameras, etc., etc. So I don't want to load huge heavy tracks just to enter some session to adjust the cameras. So I hit the scissors and I press play for 1 or 2 seconds and pause. So now when I hit the disk, it asks me to save the replay. So I'm gonna save it like radical test. There. Okay, now when I escape and I go to the replay section in the website member site, I go to testing replays. There's the radical test, Radilac test. For Christ's sake, I typoed that. Just click play, and it should load the replay, which it does. Very cool. So now you see there's a second replay, which is basically does nothing but it shows me the actual track, the car on the track, that is. So this is a lot faster, especially if you're painting cars. Probably the fastest way to get the car visible. The Control R, which is the reload the skin button in iRacing, that also works here. So this is the main indicator for selecting a different camera. There's the next camera and the previous camera buttons right next to it, but here's the list of all the cameras available. The first thing that everyone should know who is going to deal with cameras is that there are two groups of cameras, but they're all in the same list. The nose camera, gearbox, roll bar, front suspension, rear suspension, gyro, cockpit, chase, far chase, and rear chase are attached to the specific car. Actually, I'm not sure about chase, far, and rear chase, but anyway, all the car-related camera selections are located in the within the car camera packs. So to get into the camera menus, we hit Control F12, which brings up the camera menu. So at the bottom you see load track and load car menus, and like I said, where you see right here, the nose, gearbox, roll bar, front, rear suspension, and gyro and cockpit, those are all located in the load car section. So now if I try to load a car, well, I have a crappiest camera pack possibly made somewhere near the 1952, but I'm not going to load that. So I'm running a default camera pack currently. So yeah, by the way, if you guys have any questions during the stream, just throw it in the chat and I'll try, and if you missed something or need like some more briefing on it, just ask. Those camera packs are located in the car cameras. So there is, let me just open up the documents here. So iRacing documents, iRacing folder. There's the cameras. There's two subsections: tracks and cars. The cars is where the load car link goes to. So to each individual car, that is. And the same applies to load track, goes to the tracks folder. And beyond the tracks, there is different tracks. All the tracks I currently have and I have visited, those are located over there. So first things first, let's do the radicals cameras. So this is how I do, for example, if I'd have a broadcast for Glacier TV right now and I'd have to do the radicals radical camera pack, this is what I would do. So I'm gonna I'm gonna go in order. So I'm gonna just start with the nose camera. So let's have a look at the basic. How should I? Let's open a pit lane camera. I'm going to show the quick binds here. It doesn't matter what camera you're in, even if it's a TV camera that you're using. This is a free flow camera. This is not attached to the car, as you can see. The camera is not focusing on the car. If I'm pulling it, I can pull it anywhere. It doesn't focus on the car. Whereas if I pick the TV camera, which is normally locked into the car, and I rotate it, it keeps following the car. So I'm going to just use a pit lane camera to see what I mean. What I noticed last night in the painting tutorial is that a lot of people are using these offset X, Y, Z buttons on the top of the menu. There's the you can click left, right to increase, decrease values. This works just as fine, but it's clumsy as beep. So what I'd rather do is you have the WASD in your keyboard. Everyone should have them. If you don't, go to the nearest store and get yourself a keyboard that works. So WASD, front, back, left, right. That's basically what any guy who has played any first-person shooters ever should know the WASD combination. So this is a lot easier to move. If I just keep pressing WASD, there's front, back, left, and right. They work just as like if you played a Nintendo on a gamepad. That's simple. And then you have, let's say I would want to I'm too high with the camera. I want to go lower. I can still use the W, A, S, and D buttons, but I have to do something extra. So I'm going to hit Alt, and then I'm going to hit S, which means backwards. But since I have Alt pressed, it goes down. If I press W, it goes up. So there are two assisting buttons to WASD, which is Alt and Control. So if WASD alone, you can travel horizontally along the track. And remember, this does not follow the surface of the track. If I go right here, and there would be an uphill, I would dive inside the tarmac. So this goes exactly horizontally, no matter what the track shape would be. So WASD goes front, back, left, and right. Then Alt. Then if I press Alt, W and S control altitude. And if I press A and D, left and right, that controls the tilt. Okay, and if I press Control and WASD, then it keeps the camera stationary, but it rotates it. W and S control the vertical viewing angle of the camera, and A and D control the horizontal angle. So I could basically have this kind of camera like in the Indy 500 turn 1 manually, and I could just follow the car pack without focusing on anyone specifically. So those are the basic controls that everyone should get comfortable with before you actually start doing cameras, because otherwise you're going to be a granddad or grandma before you ever get to save your first ever camera pack. It's going to take like 53 years. So then you have the we're going to get into these short range, parabolic mic, etc., etc. We're going to get into those with the when we're making the track cameras. But one common you have the what the hell do you call these drag I don't care, I just call them drag. Somebody fix my vocabulary here. I just use these bars to adjust the field of view. This is basically everyone's own preference. You can use whatever zoom you want or field of view you want. If you can use like a fisheye effect if you pull it to maximum, but the default when you set like a nose camera, it has a default static field of view 75, which I usually don't. I'm not going to touch that normally if I'm making a camera, because usually the field of views in the car cameras are by default they're pretty good. The vanish X and Y basically control wherever I set the camera. It just escapes the camera horizontally or vertically a little bit, so it makes an offset to the camera point. The near plane bias basically controls how much stuff you actually see on the camera. So if you put it near a fence, for example, in an oval, and you pull it right to the maximum, this means that the camera automatically tries to get rid of as much details from in front of the camera as possible. And if you pull it this way, and it's 0.0010, which is the minimum, this means that pretty much no objects in front of the camera will disappear as soon as the object goes in front of the camera. So if you want to make like a TV camera for a Glacier TV broadcast, I usually always pull the bias. There are a few exceptions, but normally I just pull the bias to 0.0010 every time, just so that there's no disappearing fences all of a sudden in the broadcast. I've had those few times, and I almost killed myself after noticing that. But usually I pull it to minimum. So that's the way you see all the stuff initially that you have in front of the camera possibly. The mic gain is a camera specific gain meter, which the mic decibel meter at the below the gain. This is something you cannot control yourself. This always reacts on something that you actually hear. If I rewind the replay and play, you can see that it gives me 129 decibels while it's playing. So what it heard was a car sound, and I'm right at the hood, so the sound was pretty good. Normally I try to you should always try to set the gain so that well, the goal is I'm not gonna make like a crank it up camera packs like a Daytona 500 etc. has. So those have significantly different gain required to get the sounds out like beyond the commentator's voice. So normally I try to get the in-car microphone gains so that the volume level which it gives in the end is as close as it can to the TV camera output, so that it doesn't overlap with the commentator's voice in any point. Usually for every car I use about -12 setting for every in-car camera with pretty much every car. There are some silent cars like MX-5 where I would possibly use -6, but that's just my preference. There's no stopping of putting it to +15. I mean, it's a matter of what you want to do with it. But I usually use -12, so this is what I'm going to do right here. Next thing, what I want to do is I don't like the fact that the nose camera is on the ground, so I want to pull the nose camera so that it's on top of the hood. Like you can see right now, currently the nose camera is attached to the front of the car. I don't want it here. I want it pretty much right next to the 46. So I'm gonna move it right here, and since my near plane bias is 0.0010, I can see everything, so it's not overlapping with anything. So let's see, put it like here, rotate it a little bit, Control S, Control A, Control D. I'm gonna just and the space bar is also a useful tool, especially when making broadcast cameras, because in broadcast we don't have the GUI visible. It's usually like this. So I want to make the camera so that it looks good while the GUI is not visible, the graphical user interface that is. So let's just maybe like this, something like this. Okay, let's just leave it at there. So that would be my nose camera, -12. Gain to the microphone, near plane bias to 0, static field of view. I'm not going to touch that because it's an in-car camera. So there's the nose camera. Then there are a few quick binds to use to get into another camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press C. It changed to different camera. Look at the bottom of the picture. C rolls through the cameras. And when I get to the nose camera, okay, I'm going to hit C, and it's going to go to the gearbox. I'm going to press Shift C. It does it backwards. So C controls the camera. And then one useful key as well, if you press V, well, you have to remember the iRacing window has to be active when you press these key buttons, otherwise they're not going to work. But when you press V, it changes the next driver that you're currently following, and Shift V goes to the previous driver. So those are pretty useful, useful to use in pretty much everywhere. So C, gearbox, the same thing. I'm going to pull the near plane bias to the 0. As you can see right now, this was the default setting. Nothing's visible on the top side, but when I pull the near plane bias to 0, now I have some weird freaking line, and I don't want that. This is pointing up most likely to the rear of the car. Let's have a look. Yeah, this was under the rear fender. Let's just put it right here. Basically, every time I do a cameras for a car, I'm gonna aim for the type of a camera where if I let's say I have this is one of the tricks. I'm gonna reel a few tricks what I use in a broadcast almost on a daily basis. Let's say I'm following a gearbox camera right now, and Aleski Eloyama is getting a good run on me. Let's say or this car right here, and he's gonna pull to the left-hand side. What I'm gonna do is I have the iRacing activated. I press Control, and this is during a live broadcast. I'm gonna start pressing A and D. I'm gonna follow the car around the car. So what I want to do is I always aim for a camera positioning, where if I have a gearbox camera and somebody passes the car that I'm on using the gearbox camera, I can roll the camera and I can see the whole view. What I don't want is if I would set it right here, yeah, I have a super background camera now, and if Alexi passes this car now, oh crap, now there's like half the field is being blocked. So usually I try to avoid these type of cameras. So I want to position it so that I can rotate it as best as I can. Let's say like there, then the -12. There we go. It doesn't have to be accurate. It's the decibels don't give a crap about 0.5, 0.3 difference. So it's not that accurate. So that's a gearbox. Then again, C. Roll bar cameras are usually the funniest part, especially the in-car of an S car, because they have the head support plates on the side of the head, which makes it difficult to get a good angle. And that's one of the exceptions where you have to play with the near plane bias. Like you see, the roll bar is disappearing. So I possibly might, if I would actually do a broadcast, I would most likely use this kind of value so that the roll bar disappears and have a clear view on the driver. But now I'm going to set it to 0 because that's what I said I was going to do. I'm not, again, the field of view is not 75, it's now 60, but I'm not going to touch that. Feel free to touch that. All it does is like this. But this is everyone's personal preference, what you want to do with it. And don't forget, you don't have to pull these sliders. You can also write it down. You can write the new value down, but you have to remember to click out of the box in order to get it to be in effect. So I'm going to put the roll bar camera right about. Let's just do a crappy camera pack here. I like Radical to be crappy, so I'm going to create a crappy camera. 2013 version here. That's okay. -12. See, the front and rear suspension cameras are the ones that I usually use for painting cars. Now, if there are some guys watching right now who are painting cars, this is my favorite thing to do if I want to paint cars. For example, let's take Polar GT for example. If somebody has watched the Polar GT broadcast, in the overlay you can see the name of the driver, and next to it there's the picture of the driver's car. And what I did to get those paint jobs is I took the rear suspension car in the McLaren. I went approximately here. This is basically a camera. This is we're talking about a camera. Like you remember, front and rear suspension cameras are attached to the car. So if I now save a camera, okay, there. Now I save the camera pack. So now the car is, if I load a rear suspension camera right now, it's gonna look like this. This is not a rear suspension. It's looking at, but I don't give a beep, because the point is to just try to get the camera to point out to wherever you wish it to point out. Actually, I'm going to drop it a little bit because the iRacing logo is there. By the way, if you want to get rid of the iRacing.com logo, if you're taking screenshots, etc., there is a way to minimize or shrink and expand the GUI right here, and the iRacing.com water stamp. What you do is you press Control and page down. This is what happens. This is what I always do in a broadcast. I want to get rid of the watermark. But you have to remember, when you hit the Control page down and you let it, you keep it down and let it go all the way to the minimum. Now, when you hit the spacebar again, wow, your GUI has gone shit, because now it also was minimized. So you press Control page up to expand it. So depending on whether you want to use the GUI or not, you can always use the Control page down or Control page up to expand or shrink the GUI. So pretty simple shortcut keys, but they're extremely effective. This is what I would possibly save if I want to paint a radical. I would save the rear suspension camera to point pretty much like this. These cameras are pretty much irrelevant for personal broadcasting experience, so I wouldn't possibly even touch these two cameras. But this angle is what I would then use if I load the replay. Remember, I saved the replay of the radical standing 1 second in the centripetal circuit. So when I load the replay, if I save the replay like this, it's going to automatically jump to the rear suspension camera, which will then give me this angle. So every time I want to paint the car, all I have to do is load the replay and I can instantly see what I was doing. Just have to remember to save the paint job into the corresponding cars folder under the correct customer ID. But that's a different subject. So that was about the principles of saving and creating a car pack. So I didn't use the indicators or the increase decrease buttons on the top. I just used, all the time I was using WASD, and same with Alt pressed, up, down, tilt, tilt, and Control, WASD, up, down, left, right. I was using these all the time. So that's the simple part about creating a car camera. You don't have to focus. As you can see, there are a few settings that I haven't talked about. It's the position type. When the position type is selected on car, it usually always stands for one of these cameras. And the funny thing about the iRacing's camera packs is that these are the cameras that you really cannot even duplicate. If you try to duplicate or insert a camera which is an on-car camera, you cannot so-called unlock it from the car or do anything. Especially the cockpit camera is extremely annoying with F1 car, because it doesn't give you the power to select the microphone gain. So the gain is always in the cockpit camera. It's basically a solid camera. You cannot do anything with it. But these are on-car. You can see in every in-car camera, the position type at the top right says on-car. But when I go to the first TV camera, bump, now it says fixed. So the fixed camera is always something that is outside of the car, usually the normal TV cameras. The blimp and chopper camera, usually they're always attached to the blimp or chopper views. Then the aim type, which is usually important only when creating a TV camera or camera groups, there are three options: static, add car, add group. The static is also always the only one which doesn't move according to the camera, according to the cars, so it's always pointing out to exactly where you left it. But we'll get into more of those when we get into the proper tracks. So that was the basic key controls that I'm going to use while creating a track cameras from now on, when we go further into this tutorial. But now you know how to save a camera or load a camera. And remember, when you go into any session, let's say you go to like if there's a multi-class session like Proto GT Challenge series, and you go into the session and you want to load camera packs for all the cars. You want to load the Ford GT, you want to load the HPD, and you want to load the Corvettes. What you have to do is you always have to have the TV cameras. You don't have to have in the TV camera, but you have to use. You can click on the helmet at the bottom of the left, and it gives you the list of the drivers. Now I'm currently the only one in the session, so I'm only one here. But you have to select. Always have to be focused right here on the bottom left. The focus has to be on that car that you want to load. So if you want to load a Corvette and there's an HPD driver right here, you cannot load a Corvette camera pack. So you select an HPD driver here, you go to load car, then you see the HPD camera menus, so you can load a camera for HPD. Then you select someone who is driving a Corvette, and then you go to load car, and then the Corvette menu is there to open up, so you can load a camera pack for a Corvette, and the same applies for GT. Load track is something that always, once the session is loaded and you're in, you can load any track-specific camera you want. According to the chat, there doesn't seem to be any current questions, so I'm gonna exit the centripetal circuit, and we're gonna get to creating a track cameras. But in the meantime, I'm gonna have a just very quickly. I'm gonna pour myself some drink. So every time there's a new car in iRacing which I purchase, which usually stands for every car there is, even though I'm not going to drive some of them, I always create the same kind of camera pack for everyone. -12 gain for every camera angle, and near plane bias to 0, and then I just move the camera to the desired position. Holy crap, did that actually take 35 minutes? Cool. So, let's get into the creating the track cameras. The car cameras are the easiest part, because they're always attached to the same car. You don't ever have to, unless you're doing a broadcast and rotating the cameras like I did, you don't have to mind those very much. So let's create. Wonder if I have if I have any tracks where I haven't created a camera pack. Might make things more easy, because then I wouldn't have to screw up my personal cameras and create a new one. Let's see. I think I have pretty much. I think I have pretty much cameras for every layout. Maybe Oldham Park has some combos that I haven't used. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna do Okayama. I'm gonna check if I have Okayama cameras here. Tracks. So what I did was I go to my documents. It can be located anywhere in your hard drive. I just have a shortcut here. Documents, iRacing, cameras, tracks. Then I scroll to Okayama, and remember, these names can be quite deceiving sometimes. Like Oran Park is only Oran. Then there's there's quite a bit. Yeah, Motegi is just a twin ring, so that depends on just how iRacing decides to create them. Most of them are clear, like Okayama right here. Okayama, okay, want to do full cameras. Woohoo! I have a Trellit.net cam, which is made 2011. Goddamn, this must rock. Goodbye. Okay, now I don't have any cameras for Trellit.net. So I'm just gonna do Okayama full course. What car do I want to drive around? I usually do a 1 lap when I'm creating a track camera. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do a Ford GT test. Oh yeah, good one, Randolph. I'm gonna actually I can switch to VR Grand West, VIR Grand West shortly, because there's yeah, I'm gonna show the Okayama first, and I can do. There's a little bit of tweaking thing that I can show with the VIR. So okay, let's get back to that then. So now we're at Okayama. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna first drive a lap, and now have a wheel on my laps. So this lap, don't have a look at any. Don't try this at home. I'm just gonna do a lap using a wheel on my laps. It doesn't have to be a hot lap. All I have to do is get something on the track with which the cameras will then follow. This is gonna be fun. I don't have any. God damn it. Well, let's try it. My wheel is not attached to anything, so this might be a little bit tricky. So once again, I don't have to race flat out. All I have to do is drive one full lap. Shut up, Randolph. Yeah, most likely I'm pretty damn concentrated right now with the Ford GT, because this time I usually don't have my wheel detached from the table, so I can actually have some force feedback instead of force feedback throwing me sideways. This is gonna be tricky! Oh, yeah, I rotated it. Woohoo! I'm not gonna do one more lap, this is painful. So if you wanna like make some yeah, this is a pretty close to bottom split pole time. I'm not gonna actually score a pole here. Abasladak is gonna beat me with a reverse gear. Okay. This usually I do if I have my wheel properly detached. I usually do I usually do 2 full laps. That is because the main straightaway. If I come out of the pit lane on any track, usually the main straight cameras are not properly functional. So, but this time I'm just gonna pull over right here because I did a 1 full lap. Okay, I'm gonna pull over, hit escape. Okay. So now I have one lap. So let's start with where the actual lap started, right here. Okay, I come out of the pits. Let's just right here. So now I press the control F12, like usual. Always, I just open the camera pack, the camera menu, I mean, and then I go to, let's say, TV1. Usually, when I'm making a camera pack for glacier racing purposes, I usually aim for making TV1 camera a bit more zoomy, a bit more close-up footage on the cars, and TV2 camera I usually try to put as like a much more distant camera view, so that I can show more action at with the same camera angle, more cars at the same time. And then third or fourth, maybe I'll do a mix-up so that I'm actually using camera angles which might have a static zoom or static field of view, like drive-by cameras, some cameras that just have the, for example, in the Barber I have a TV3 camera which lasts for 30 seconds straight. It's in between the main straight and the middle straight, and it actually stays on through the whole forest complex. But that's, like I said, this is just my way of doing things. Everyone is completely free to do whatever kind of camera packs you wish. So, TV1 camera selected. Usually I just stick with the 3 different groups. We can create extra groups, but I'm not gonna do it right here. I'm gonna show it when we get to the VIR then. So now let's just focus on these existing camera packs. So now I'll open a TV1 that's currently, you can see at the top, camera name camtv1_00. This is the name of the camera that I'm in at the moment. I'm currently staring at my car in turn 1 using the 00 camera in TV1 pack. And here's where we could talk about. Oh, actually, the add car, add group thing is something that gets shown best if I load up some oval session and then I display it there. But so with a single car, it's not showing as well as it should. So I'm just gonna load a public session where you can actually see what it means. There are a few sections which I never ever touch while I'm creating a camera. Feel free to experiment with anything, but I usually don't touch it. So I don't use the aperture ever. I just leave the f/8.0. I don't touch the dampen camera. Is beyond fence I usually leave on. Is parabolic mic on, and I don't touch the pitch and roll gyrocams. The gyrocams always only affect on the gyrocam within the car. The is beyond fence is a bit of a funny camera, which I think I've used it once in Milwaukee, turn 2 exit camera, which gives a funny bit of tweak into how the camera functions. But this is how I usually do things. So add again right where I start. I do the usual routine. Every time I do something to any camera when creating cameras from nothing, I always do the basic routine. Near plane bias to minimum. I don't know why the camera keeps moving. You see the camera moving where it was facing, but it's a funny bug in iRacing. But every time, when you hit play, it starts to focus in the correct spot again, and now it moves again away again. So near plane bias to 0, and mic gain is something that I have, well, out of experimenting. I usually use 18 point something in the TV cameras. This usually gives the same kind of a gain in the mic decibel meter than I get in the in-car cameras with hitting -12. So this is based on experiments, so you guys can, if you want to crank it up camera, you can just drag this like all the way to 40, etc. But I always use 18 point something in the TV1 cameras. And then with the TV2 cameras, I aim for 17 or 16 point something, just to make it appear so that when the camera is more further away from the car, so is the volume. Yeah, I think the Impala A has the Gen 6 car actually has pretty high volumes, and the F1 they both have pretty high decibel readings. I actually had to, when I was making the Gen 6 camera pack, I had to go beyond -12 in order to get the decibel ratings to same level as the other cars. So F1 and Gen 6 are the maybe the present day Corvette is also one which has a pretty high volume, high decibel ratings, and then Kia Jetta MX-5, they are the ones with the pretty low volume. Okay, so near plane bias to minimum, mic gain to 18. This is always what I do first, because otherwise I'll forget it, and it doesn't sound good if all the other cameras are at 18 and then one camera is like this, because I just forget it. So this is what I always do first. Okay, so again, I'm gonna only use the WASD, and as you can see right now, I'm using the WASD, but since the TV camera is focusing on the car, it's focusing actually at the group, but like I said, the group and the car give exactly the same results, since I only have one car on the track. But it doesn't really matter at this point. You can see the difference later on. So I'm going to use WASD, and it's going to track down the car all the time, no matter where I'm moving. And this time, when the camera is attached to the car, it's locked down to the center point is locked down to the car. When I'm pressing Alt and A and D, that was the left and right tilt button. which we went through in the center pedal circuit, that doesn't do anything. I'm currently pressing Alt and tapping A and D, and as you can see, absolutely nothing is happening, because it cannot tilt the camera because it's trying to lock down to the car. And neither do the Control A and D, W, the altitude and rotation camera angles do not work if the aim type is at the group or the car. If I set it to static, now it doesn't. Now it's not attached to the car anymore, as you can see. Now if I hit the Alt A and D, now it tilts, and now it rotates. If I select at car or at group, bound. Now it's locked again. So now I have the. I'm gonna start with the cameras. So I had the napalm bias at minimum. I have the mic gain set up. I want this camera. I usually always go with the TV1 as it always follows the group. But there are a few exceptions. If there's a super slow narrow corner, which I know 100% fact that there's not going to be any passing done unless there's a wreck. At that stage, I usually use car, even though it would be TV1 group, because I wanted to focus on that specific car. If there's a long line of cars in a slow corner, it gives pretty annoying type field of view, especially when I'm trying to do a broadcast behind the cameras and I can only follow that specific TV camera. It's annoying if it shows what you don't want to see. So then there's the zoom rating. So every time I go, if I want to create a new camera, notice that now I'm currently attached to the 00 TV1 camera. You can find all the cameras, by the way, by selecting the group button at the bottom. This is on the left. You can see all the cameras currently assigned to the TV1 group. These are the cameras that I have all around the racetrack at my disposal. These are all the cameras currently created to this camera pack. So I could basically drag in TV301 camera in this same pack, but I don't want to do that. But it's completely free. You can drag over another camera angle from another pack if you wish to do so. Just have to be careful and check a few things so that you don't overlap the cameras. So I'm currently now only adjusting the existing cameras. I'm not going to create additional cameras in here. I'm going to do it in the VIR then, because I have to do pretty much mandatory new stuff there anyways. So we're at the TV100 camera, and always when I'm trying to I want to show as much as possible in a one camera view. So I'm gonna, every time before I start actually setting the camera so to finalize it for a broadcast purpose, I always pull it to the minimum. As you can see, there's quite a bit of nothing happening at the bottom of the slider. Only after 6 point something starts actually happening, and what it means is the camera has no use of the zoom with this rating. The car is too close to the camera for this amount of zoom to be effective. If the car would now be at the beginning of the main straight, this would still do something. But the camera is so close to the car that this zoom is the same. I mean, the camera would have to be further than this to be ordered to camera to be able to adjust the zoom. But now when we get close, now it starts affecting. So I always pull the camera to absolute minimum. What this means is now I'm at the exact point on the racetrack. If I pull it to the ground right now, now I'm at the exact position where the actual camera is being located. If I pull the zoom, now you would think I would be 3 feet from the car, or like 10 feet. But now if I try to move the camera, let's say I move it to the left, yeah, this looks good. But where the hell is my camera? I haven't got the slightest idea where my actual camera is at the moment, because the zoom is so heavy that I can currently be right near a corner of a grandstand or behind a tree or something, but I cannot know it because the zoom is on. So always go for 0 zoom before you start setting up a camera. As you noticed, this is where I started to pull the camera, and I ended right here, and it didn't show pretty much anything new. Anyhow different while the zoom was maximized. So I always use the minimal zoom during when I want to set a camera. So now I want to, let's say let's hit play. Let's see where the car goes. I want to see where the next camera launches, and before the next camera switches, I'm just gonna point out something. What you can see right now is when we're dealing with TV cameras, there's the limit shot to range button, which means that if this is enabled, if it's disabled, then these values get disabled as well. But if it's enabled, these settings will become valid. What this means is, I'm not actually sure about the exact measurement. I think it's pretty close to yardage. So how many yards this track actually is. And I can, somebody remind me at the end of the show, I can show a little bit of tweak, which I found out only like a few weeks ago. But what this means is that as the car on focus is at this yardage, the 0 marker is always at the start-finish line. But I'm not going to change this to 0 right now. But the 0 point is always at the start-finish line. This means that the beginning of the camera is slightly before the start-finish line because the reading is so high. And what this value means, the set end value, is that after 375, let's call it yards, after 375 yards, the camera focus area goes beyond its limits. And after that, iRacing's simulator, if this box is enabled, enable automatic shot selection in the group button, or in the group subcategory. If that's enabled, then iRacing Sim automatically tries to find the next most appropriate camera to use. So you actually have currently I'm looking at these are the cameras, remember, which I currently have at my disposal. I'm currently, the red indicator means the camera that I'm currently following. Or sorry, the camera that is currently effective. There's every other camera is reading 0, but this camera is reading 21. So what is that? What it means is, let's have a slow motion. So every time a camera is activated, right now you can see the car is pretty close to the start-finish line right now. It's slightly beyond that. So the camera, TV1 camera, where I'm at right now, is already in action. It always starts with the 100. So at the time, usually, unless the cameras, you can make overlapping cameras, which means that, well, I'll get into that a bit later, but you can, the camera, the durations of the cameras and the areas of the cameras can overlap. There's nothing wrong with it, absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, it's useful if you want to rewind certain corner complexes. It's it's much more rational to have a rewind without the camera hopping back and forth if the crash happens exactly between the two cameras. So every camera, when it gets activated, it starts with this, starts from 100, and it decreases the closer it gets. The closer the car on focus gets to the end of the camera area, the closer it gets to 0. So I'm gonna put it in the extreme slow motion. I'm gonna tap the button several times so you can actually, oh, not that slow, god damn it. Okay, now you can see that it starts decreasing, so it's already approaching the end of the zone. So the 375 yards. At the time it reaches 0, watch what happens. It's at the 375 when it hits 0 now. It stays 0 for just a few seconds. And now what happened was the 375 yardage was exceeded. What iRacing did was the TV101 camera now got enabled because it had the set start value of 373 yards. So as you remember, the 00 camera, if I double click that, I can switch to whatever camera I want, but if I hit play, it automatically throws me to the correct responding camera. So this was the camera that we were on, and it ended the 375. This is the camera that iRacing picked first, next, because it starts from 373. So there's a 2-yard overlapping with these cameras, which is not a big deal. It's basically nothing in this particular incident. But when you're dealing with tracks which has lots of trees or houses or something which block the view, that few yards can be crucial for not showing anything to showing the whole car. So this applies, the same policy with the cameras applies everywhere. So if I now rewind, when you're rewinding something, always ignore the number. The numbers only react according properly when you're going forward. So if I press rewind, it shows 100, and right now this should say 10 or something like that, but since I'm rewinding, it's basically doing everything like it shouldn't do. Like you see, now it says 99, where in fact it should say 0, because like with the normal logic. So always ignore the number when you're rewinding. If you want to see where the camera begins or ends, always go forward. So once more, let's have it one more time. So the TV00 camera group is now activated. The camera is activated, I mean, within the group. It approaches the ending part of the camera area. And when it ends, the 01 camera begins just slightly before the end of the 00, which is basically irrelevant in here, but you can see there. So that's the principle on how you set up. If usually you should always go for, if you want to, you have to get comfortable with playing around with the start and end values of the different cameras, but you have to make sure that you set the previous camera to end so that there's no gap between these. So if, as you can see right now, the set end is 375. If I set it to 300, what it now means is that between 300 and 372 yards, there is 72 yards of nothing. So what happens? Watch. This is the only exception. Nothing happened differently. Why? Because it was the 00, the initial camera that we were using on. But let me just show you exactly what I mean. Let's set it 375 so it's correct. Let's fast forward to, like, let's say here. Now I'm currently following TV103 camera. Okay, and that begins with 966.2. Let's see where the other previous camera ends. I'm going to rewind. 968.2, 966.2. So that's pretty good overlapping. There's 2 yards of overlapping, so that's pretty good. But if I now change this to 900, now there are 60 yards of nothing between the cameras. So watch what happens. At the time the cameras now should change to the correct camera. Whoops. What is this? So, where did it jump? It jumped to TV100 camera. Why? Because that's the first initial camera in the group. So every time you have a section of a track which doesn't have any given coordinates for a specific camera, this is what happens. It always picks by default the top camera of the group. Even though the camera would be in completely different, it can be on a different planet, it can be behind a different tree, it can be anywhere. But if it cannot find any specified camera that matches those coordinates on the racetrack, it always picks the default. By default, it picks the top camera. So this is what happens. Now, when the car reaches to the proper first coordinate, which was the 968, now it jumps back to the correct cameras. So there was the 60 yards of nothing, and iRacing Sim by default selects the first default. Okay, I'm going to change this camera back to 970 something, and now it should be back to normal. Yep. Now it switches back normally. So always be accurate so that you don't leave empty gaps between the two cameras, because that's what when that happens. For example, in the Twin Ring Motegi, in the default iRacing camera pack, there's a TV2 camera, or I think it was TV2 camera, which completely disappear. It completely loses focus, and it goes to a camera which is under the grandstands near the middle of the track when the cars come to the main straightaway. That's because one of the cameras, the two main straight cameras, don't have any coordinates set by default. So every time the default cameras get used, the sim just goes completely haywire and it just tries to pick something. So that's a good example of always be sure to check out the gaps. But the gap currently in the primary camera in the turn 1, this looks pretty. Maybe I'll just increase it a little bit. So as you can see right now, it's working. It's cutting off right at the exit of turn 1 here. What I want to do is, I want it to go slightly further than this. I want it to show till the beginning of corner number 2, which is pretty visible from this angle. So now my camera is. I want the camera to be positioned pretty much like this, slightly elevated from. I don't want it to be like here because this is when you have 30 cars, it's going to look like a huge pile. So a little bit higher like this, and then I'm going to zoom it. The best way to get the zoom right is just either pause to the location where the car is to the closest of the camera, and then start scrolling the zoom. So you can see the empty zone, which was 6 point something. No, actually now it's 7 point something because the car is closer. So now the zoom begins. So this would probably be the zoom I would go for right here, because now you have to remember when it's a broadcast camera and you disable the GUI, you see this much on the screen. So it's different if I would create a screen or the TV cameras for non-broadcasting purpose, I would want to see more. So then I would probably pull it right about here. I would want to see more than this in one shot. So this would be something I would pick. But if I would put this to the broadcast, this would look like a pile of ants. So for broadcasting cameras, I want to go a bit closer than this. So let's set it to 25. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so now when I go to the beginning of a camera, yeah, this is broadcast France. Now it looks pretty good. Now I have a pretty good field of view. If there would be 30 cars now coming, this would give pretty good angle of every car out there. So let's just leave it at this. But now, like I said, the beginning of the camera is good, but I want it to end slightly later than this. It cuts off right as I'm exiting turn 1. Bang. So I want it to come right about here. So what I'll do is I'll just increase. I'll pause right here. It doesn't matter where you pause. I just want to play with the edges. So let's say, how much is that? Let's add 100 yards, like this. So now you remember. Now I have this camera ending at 475, and the next camera is beginning at 373. But the iRacing sim does not change into this camera angle until this camera angle says 0. So it always applies. It always favors the camera that is currently being used. So if you have at any stage of the track, you have a camera which has the beginning point of, let's say, 100 and the ending point should be 200, but for some reason you entered 2000, then it means at the time that camera gets activated, it never gets deactivated because the area it covers is so huge. So I have the 475. It's going to do the 100 yards with this camera angle. As you can see, slow motion. This is where it used to cut off. As you can see right now, the TV 101 camera is already in action since it reads 100, but it's not effective yet because the first camera has not reached 0 yet. Okay, it's pretty accurate. Surprisingly good one go. So should switch now. Bit closer than this. Yeah. That's pretty much perfect. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted it to go all the way to the turn 2 entry and then switch the camera. But now the problem is the default camera is set so that the cameras work at least decently together. But now my problem is I don't want this camera to begin this close to the car. So what I can do is scroll through the cameras, find the nearest which I would probably like. But all these are crap. Okay, this is the next camera on the group which will be activated after the number one camera. So I want to see where exactly this points at. So I'll just right now I'm attached. Remember, I can to any camera I wish anytime, but the camera is still focusing on the 0, 1. And since I have the enable automatic shot selection, if I hit play and let's say I go right here and I hit play, it automatically gives me the 0, 1 view again because that's activated. So I hit pause and I can do whatever I want. So I want to see where this camera is actually currently at. So I'm going to switch that, double click the 2 camera, pull the zoom to the minimum. As you can see, I'm at the kink next to the next uphill. So what I could do is, and this is what I prefer to do, this has a pretty good ending value, this camera right here. This is pretty good group. So, but the problem is, it's beginning way too late. So I want it to be, usually I aim for as little amount of cameras as possible. I don't want to create a camera for broadcast that is on 2.3 seconds and switches to the next camera. I want it to show as much as possible so that the viewer does not have to scour the different cameras to spot the cars they want. So now what I'm going to do now is, so remember, this is the camera that is currently activated, right? And this is the camera where I wanted to skip next. Let me rephrase that. This is the camera where I wanted it to end. Let's have another view. This camera ends right about here, but this camera is pointing at the car. This camera is, if I hit the zoom, you can see the car is currently behind the mountain. This is not good. What I want to now do is, I want to get rid of this camera right here. So at the time this camera goes to the end, I want it to jump directly to this camera. What I'm going to do is, you have to this is just, I still once remind you that this is just how I do it. There's no one correct way of doing this, but if I want to get rid of a camera right here and I want it to skip to this camera instantly, what I have to do is I'm going to go to the previous camera and I have to see where the camera starts. 373, but we all know that that's way too far, because if I rewind, this is what the overlap actually causes, because when I have this camera on and I press forward, it goes to 475. And remember, the other camera is still activated, like you can see right here. It's already active behind it. Now the camera goes active. But now if I rewind, here's the trick with the overlapping cameras. This camera, we're currently at 478 yards, I would say. So this camera has area 100 yards beyond, behind the car right now. So it was enabled at the time the first corner camera was still on, but it's still valid. So what happens if I rewind now is the exact same thing that happens when going forward. It prefers the camera which is already active. So if I hit rewind, it goes 100 yards with this camera, as you can see. It's still using this camera even though the primary camera is active, because this was active before. So this is the advantage of overlapping. You can, if you watch a normal race, you would see this. So you would see in a normal race circumstances, you see the camera switching here. But if there's a crash happening here, and you want to rewind 5 to 10 seconds to see what exactly happened here, this is where the rewind gets good, effective, because you don't have to watch this camera for the crash. You can actually use that the secondary camera to get the rewind. But this is not what I want to do right here. I want it to skip the next camera angle. So I want to keep this, but I want to get rid of this. So I watch where it starts, 373, but since I have overlapping camera, I want to see where this ended. It ended to 475, so the next camera should start at 475, right? So I'm going to click this camera, and I'm going to hit the arrow to the right key, which drops the 01 camera off from the inventory. Now, you can see the camera, it appeared in inventory right here, but now it's not available for my, I have to reselect it here and click it here. and it brings it back. But now I got rid of the so-called pointless camera, and now after this camera is over, see what happens. Again, this is now at the 475 marker, but after this there's good few hundred yards where nothing is happening. So what the camera does, it gets confused and it doesn't show. It keeps with this camera till this camera hits its zone. So that's the here's the dead zone, which has currently no cameras. Okay? So what I want to do is, at the time this camera ends, this ends way too late. As you can see, it hits 0 already here. So I want to add an extra, let's say 50 yards. Let's put it to 525. And let's see what happens. That's pretty good. Now all I have to do is I want to see if this camera can actually see the car. It still cannot see the car, but I can move this camera right now. So I'm currently at the 02 camera, which I want it to be next camera in line, and I move the camera a little bit. Let's see if I can spot the car. It's right there. The car is right there. So this is pretty close to what I want. Not exactly, but pretty close. So let's get back to first things first. I'll set this to 525, like I set the previous camera. So this camera ends to 525, and this camera begins at 525. So now there's no dark zone between the cameras, so now I'm pretty much safe. So now what I want to do is I want this camera to end. Let's raise this. Christ, there's the Yokohama banner. So 20 yards more. No, 15 yards more. Let's put it to 540. Ah, crap, that's too much. This is the crappy part of creating cameras, where you really have to be patient with finding the correct values. Still too much. It's a matter of I think the 525 was pretty. Yeah, the 525 is pretty good. There's a small section where it goes completely beyond the mountain, but if there's more than 2 cars on the screen, it's not going to matter. So now we have a pretty good idea of, we have the 525 ending marker, we have the 525 beginning marker. So now I'll just move this camera back so that back to where, close to its original point, but I still want to keep the car all the time so that it's visible. I don't want invisible spots on the track. So I try to this is where I use mouse. I just keep holding the slider, and I'm using WASD to move around. So I don't want to use. I could naturally use this kind of camera, which was super high, but this looks crap in a broadcast. So I want to do a bit more low altitude cameras. This probably look pretty good right here. I don't want it to be behind the fence because fences are bad. Rocks are bad. Okay. So microphone gain again to 18. I don't want to forget that. And now is at the zoom. Wait, what was the zoom value for the TV1 camera? 25.64. I want to use pretty close to the same zoom so that the viewer actually sees the cars pretty much the same size through the whole lap. So this is what it would currently look like. If we now roll back to the pit lane, this is what the current first camera would now look like. And you have to remember, this is done with very low speed, so this is not actually indicating. Good point, CDC Racing. I've never actually tried that, but that's a good point. So now it was pretty good. Where the camera ended, the second began, so the switch point is pretty good. But now, as you noticed, I moved the camera so much that now it goes beyond the mountain again. So, but where this camera ends, no problem, CDC Racing. Hope it helps. This is going to be on YouTube, by the way, in my personal site slightly afterwards. So if you miss something, you can always have a look at that. So now what I want to do is I can click to the next camera, and this already has, this is not activated, as you can see it still says 0, so it's still disabled because the zone of the track has not begun where it's activated, but it still can see the car completely. So what I can do is I go back to the previous camera, maybe a little bit like here, and now I have to find out where exactly is this point. Let's actually try the CDC Racing. Easy way to get that tricky ending point. Set end once, then play till the spot you want. Pause. Oh, that's cool. Thanks a lot, man. That actually helped like 1,000,000 minutes from my life, and I'm not kidding. So what I actually did was I followed the CDC Racing's instruction. I wanted to set the ending point to this camera, so I clicked the set end. It starts blinking, and I pause it to where I want it to end, and I click it again, and now it updates. Yeah, that's excellent tool. So now I see the 871.4 is the ending point of this camera. So I now want to set the next camera to begin at, let's say, 870 or 865 or something like that, because it can clearly see the car, so it can go slightly beyond that. If I have to hit reverse, it can still see the car. So 865 right here. Let's hit 865. Click. So now the outcome should be pretty okay-ish. No, I'm not wearing pajamas. Okay, now it's pretty smooth. But again, new camera. I set the mic gain to say similar level. Near plane bias to 0. Mic zoom, camera zoom to 0. I want to see where the hell this is. I want it to be so that I can. This is actually the iRacing's bad part about creating a basic camera pack, because they usually use like this kind of cameras, which are here, and when the car goes 200 yards further, it switches to another camera, and then it switches to another camera, when you could use one camera for the whole 3 camera area, which is far better thing for a broadcast. So what I want to do is, this is a pretty good hairpin with very low trees in the. There's actually no trees in the block to block the view, so this is where the camera actually starts. So this is awesome point to pick a good camera angle where you can see insane amount of time, because you can use one camera. Like, as you can see right here, I can still see the car beyond the mountain right there. But at the same time, if I elevate the camera, I can also see the entire back stretch. So this is awesome spot to set if I want to use low amount of cameras in one specific camera pack or a camera angle or whatever. This is awesome way to save insane amount of efforts for creating cameras that go 200 yards apiece. So this starts at 865, and my guess is that now I can set it to end at something like 1600, because this is insanely good position for a camera. So let's set it to and I can pretty much see that there's nothing blocking the camera view, so I can set the zoom already to the 25, which was the initial value. Let's see what happens. Let's see where the camera actually ends. So this now it has the basic set end value, which was originally set by iRacing. As you can see, I can see it can easily go like extra 150 yards, and I can still see everything. So I can set it to begin, to end at like 1500. And let's have another go. That's pretty good. I don't want it to be. I don't want the camera to follow the car too far, because then it's basically it disappears too far. It doesn't give sound that well for the camera anymore, and the car's that are nearer to the camera will actually start distorting the sounds. So that's pretty good value right there. And remember, it ended to 1500, so I'm going to set this camera to begin at 1500. So now I have a pretty good overlap. Yeah, that's pretty good. So then next challenge I have is the number 4 camera. And again, what I'm going to do, mic gain, near plane bias, minimal zoom. And again, as you can see, no trees in... What the hell is that? Cool. Speed trap. I'm gonna set this to... I don't want it to be exactly along the straight, because I want it to... This kind of view pretty much... it doesn't matter if the car is going 200 or 500 kilometers per hour, it still shows like it's going 50. So I want to indicate at least a little bit of speed, but I don't want to do a drive-by camera with the TV1 group. The TV1 is always in the broadcasts. If you watch a Glacier TV broadcast, the TV1 camera is always the camera that I use for to indicate as much of a track action as possible. And the drive-by camera is pretty crappy for that purpose, unless it's a replay camera, etc. So I want to put it to, in case there's a huge wreck in here, I don't want to put it to the sand trap. I want to set it above the fence. Remember, I'm at minimal zoom, so what I see right now is where my camera actually is. So I'm going to set it on top of the fence, right there. Altitude doesn't really matter, but I just want it to be so that, yeah, like this. The fence is not going to block it, so I want to be above the fence, like this. Okay, next, the beginning point is already set. Gain is set, near plane bias is set. I'm going to zoom back out. And this is actually a kind of view where I could use more zoom than 25. I could actually put it to 32 like that, because it still shows pretty damn lot. If I then click play, you can see even though the zoom is max, the car is so far away that the angle is such that you can actually see quite a bit, except when you go right here. Now, if there would be an overtaking maneuver right here, that would be a pretty bad angle, because it doesn't give you... You can fit, lengthwise, you can fit 2-3 cars over there, like you can see right now. This would be pretty bad for zoom, because now if there's an overtaking, you can only see the one or two cars battling. You cannot see anyone getting a run or going wide or something like that. So I want to go slightly more outwards. And this is always a compromise. Now I go to outwards, now it's pretty good. Now I can catch quite a bit of action, but at the beginning point, now the car is pretty small. But it doesn't. If the car is small, it doesn't mean that the angle would be bad. It's a matter of what do you want to express with the camera. Do you want to show it? I mean, I might as well could drag it right here. This could be like a lap 1 camera where there's a huge pack of cars close to each other. This camera would actually show the whole straightaway all the way until even though I would be following a leader right now, you can see I would still see the entire the entire back stretch. But this is not what I'm going for in a TV1 camera, so I'm going to set the zoom to 25. And now I have a pretty good view majority of the time during the whole straightaway. So if I now would see that, oh, Gregor Hutto and Hugo Louis going too wide, but behind them there's a huge wreck, I would get a pretty good... yeah, I can see the braking zone. When the car is right here, I can still see the braking zone, as you can see. So this is a pretty good positioning for personal preference, I mean. And by the way, in case there is a sim crash, etc., etc., always remember to save your cameras every now and then. Yeah, even though you might actually accidentally delete some cameras or something, so always be sure to save the cameras always, so you don't get into any trouble. So, where does this camera end? That's not that good. I mean, I don't want... we're talking about like a 20 yards in here, but I would want it to go slightly further than that before cutting off. So I'm going to set it to end about 120. That's a lot better, because there's an in the exit. If there's still something happening, you can still see the exit from the same camera. You don't have to focus on different things. That's a lot better. And the set start value in this one, that's pretty much irrelevant, because I only adjusted 20 to 30 yards, and you can still, while rewinding, you can still see the area from this camera. So that's completely irrelevant. You don't have to change that. You can if you wish, naturally, but you don't have to. Okay, now I want to see where these are the sections of the tracks which I always hate the most. The tight, twisty corners where you have things blocking the view, etc. You cannot use wide camera angles, etc. So this is the anti Johnny Beckman camera position right here. These are the ones that makes me mad, mad right now. So now I want to see, as you saw, that this is a pretty dumb angle actually. Why does it switch over here? I mean, it shows one stupid hairpin. It starts right here, it goes one kink actually, and it changes. Why the hell does it do that? I mean, this angle, this camera angle could still show all the way up till here, where the backstretch camera could pop in. So, again, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna actually use the camera tweak that who was the guy? CRC Racing taught. So yeah, CDC, I completely agree. It just drives me nuts. On more than half of the, well, actually 90% of iRacing's default cameras just keeps pissing me off, to be honest. I haven't got the slightest idea who would be stupid enough to create those kind of cameras. But anyway, that's everyone's personal preference. So they might think I'm actually stupid to create cameras that actually show something, but everyone has their own opinion. So I'm gonna have to disable. First, I'm gonna disable this pointless camera. Indeed, Randolph, coming soon. That's iRacing's favorite sentence. So I'm gonna. This is the camera that I want to continue further on. This is the camera that I want to get rid of. So I'm gonna click the get rid of camera. I'm gonna move it to the right, like this. Now I'm in the camera which I want to get further than this. So I click the set end. It starts flickering. Maybe right here. So now this camera shows that came from the stupidest camera ever to quite rational camera actually. Yeah, I know CDC, I noticed that. I was actually just about to say that it's gonna drop me to the dead zone, but it didn't because the set end was set. So again, before I forget, mic gain to 18, near plane bias to 0, and zoom to 25. Well, hello tree. What the hell was that? Okay, maybe I'll set the set start to something else that I have to don't watch chipmunks. Let's set it right there. Okay, so now I have that's pretty good. But again, mic gain, near plane bias, zoom, and now I'm going to search a good spot for the zoom. Once again, I don't want to be directly facing the car. I want it to be slightly to one angle. I actually did the short course camera. I set a camera right here as a sort of a passing camera, but I'm not going to do it right here. I'm going to set it to close, so I can actually use that roof there. let's set it right there. That's pretty good. As my near plane bias is set to 0, as you can see the fence at the bottom left is still showing, but if I pull the near plane bias back to where it was, bingo, no fence. But the problem with this is, at some points you can actually help the view by getting rid of, by increasing the near plane bias, which removes obstacles from the camera, but it also has you're in huge jeopardy of getting into a situation where in a live broadcast all of a sudden you have a fence appearing out of nowhere when the camera is in a specific angle, so that's what I always want to avoid. So I'll set the near plane bias to 0 so there's no surprises. And zoom back to 25 since I have the camera positioned. 26, I don't give a beep. And roll camera. That's actually pretty good flow. This camera is starting at pretty good spot. Yeah, I wouldn't actually change anything with these last 3 cameras. This is pretty good. Other than the zoom and the mic gain, of course, but the flow is pretty good. It shows to the apex point, and now it begins with a new camera. This is actually the first good camera in the whole pack. Like that. The ending point in this camera also seems to be quite good. It's right at the tip of the barrier, so that saves my time because it's at the maximum where it can show. Again, same settings. Oh, what the... Okay, that was the only bug currently in the camera set. But I don't wanna start adjusting. All I'd have to do is drop this camera angle a bit. But the problem with then being that if I go to the beginning of problem with then might be that actually the car disappears beyond the barrier right now. If I go downwards, well, that's as far as I'm willing to go. Yeah, now it's it didn't take much, as you can see. The barrier, currently it was showing, previously it was showing this, so all I have to do is like this. Now I have a pretty good view of the whole lap without any obstacles whatsoever. So I'm pretty satisfied with this one. Yeah. So now I just save the track file. I just overwrite that one. Double click. Yes. Like this. So that's basically creating a single camera pack from existing cameras. Then I'm gonna load the VIR Grand West to show a few more tricks, since I have to do them anyways. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, let's go to the some irrelevant camera like pit lane. I always love these cameras. I always use them for random floating on ovals. I just set them to grandstand view, so I want to watch and eat popcorn and listen to voice chat. So I'm gonna show a little bit tweak. So right now I'm pressing. Yeah, the VR basic cameras are terrible. I'm pressing currently W. I'm going forward horizontally. Okay. S W S W. So now you can see I'm moving solidly. So if I keep pressing the W or S, I'm moving at steady pace. Now you can see at the bottom of the screen it says key step factor and use key acceleration. So if I enable the key acceleration, what this does is now if it's disabled, the key step factor goes with a rate of 2.25. So this defines the speed of this. So if let's say I put it to 5.2, I click to the outside, it goes valid. Now if I click W, as you can see, it's more than double faster. And you have to remember, now if I want to set 15, I'm hitting number 1 key right now. Nothing is happening. Why? Because the reading is full. The 0 at the end, you have to wipe it off. Now you can hit the 1. So it only accepts 4 digits. So now with the 15, now it's pretty damn fast. if I rotate horizontally, this looks pretty freaking horrifying. So it's fast. But normally, if I'm editing something, I want to use like 2.25, like this one. But if you want, let's say I want to go to that mountain right there behind it, and it's insanely far. There's no point for me to change to 22 key step factor. To beat a huge amount of time, distance, just check the key acceleration. What it does is, it pretty much goes to the powers of something with the speed that when I press W and I hit it, at start it gives a little bit of nod. It stops for a second and then it stops going. But if I keep pressing it, watch what happens. I'm currently tapping Alt to get altitude. So as you see, I beat insane amount of distance in a short amount of time by just keep pressing the button, because the key acceleration gives me exponential speed. So if I just tilt the camera now like this so you can see how fast it's actually going. Okay, now just press the W and keep holding it, watch. It speeds up, speeds up, speeds up, speeds up. This is pretty much the maximum it's gonna go. So I went across the whole track in 6 seconds. So that's pretty useful if you want to like tracks at Spa or something where you want to travel with huge speeds with huge distance. That's pretty useful. But usually I just don't use the key acceleration, especially for broadcasting purpose. If I use key acceleration, I want to show what happens. I'm gonna go on board with the Ford GT. If I now press, if somebody passes the car, I'll try to follow it. I click left. It gives me nod, 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 nod. Fine. I keep pressing and watch what happens. Woohoo! So that would be pretty stupid. So that's why I don't use the key acceleration, so I get smooth rotation. So that pretty much covers up the whole editing the existing cameras. So you don't basically have to do anything more special than that. Of course, you can play around, especially on ovals, if you want to do near fence cameras. You can uncheck the beyond fence thing. The parabolic mic only affects how accurately it grabs the sound from the targets. So if you uncheck the parabolic mic with a huge amount of cars, it basically brings in more noise from the sides. And if it's checked with the parabolic mic, it usually focuses more on the target and finds the volume there. It's a matter of what do you want to do. Normally in every basic camera, the parabolic mic is checked, so it's pretty good. It gives you pretty good sound. But so much for that. I saved the camera pack, so that was the TV1 camera creation for Okayama full course. Now I could join, I just joined very quickly to some ongoing race sessions, so you can actually see what I'm talking about. 1:30. Let's see if there's anything running here. Oh yeah, there's quite a bit of things running. Something with a lot of cars. Something a little fast. Let's take the Impala at Charlotte. I'm pretty sure there's something there. Actually, I only have like I gotta start practicing for the Indy 500 race, so I'll keep this up for 15 more minutes. I'm gonna show the at group at car thing on the TV cameras, and I'm gonna show how to add camera angles. So now I'm pretty sure, yeah, I don't have a custom camera pack made for Glacier TV for Charlotte, so you can expect pretty high volumes compared to that Ford GT sound you just heard, because the Gen 6 is pretty loud. So the TV cameras are using the basic volume bar, which makes it pretty damn loud. No, actually, this camera, the TV1, actually has pretty low value. It has only 13 decibels, or 13 gain. But as you can see, with a 13 gain, it already gives 150 decibels. So what I usually go with the 18 mic gain, it usually gives me like 130, 142, something like that. So it already goes beyond it, even with the 13 gain. So no, I'm not going to use the Indie to show the cams because I'm actually focusing on driving if my graphics card allows me to do so. But where was I? Yeah. Let's find a group of cars. Well, that's a pretty good group of cars right there. So I'm gonna follow the Adam Gilliland #2 car, and so I have a better view on this. Okay, currently the TV1 cameras are all following the group, so you can see that actually Adam is not in the middle of a group. Let's pick the next one.
Can't go in, man. I'm just riding.
Let's pick RJ Williams. He's leading in a 3-car pack.
Appreciate it, though.
Or in the middle of a 5-car pack, actually.
Just when caution comes up before I get left, but it's not likely.
As you can see in the drive-by, when they're approaching turn 1, this is following the group. Watch what happens. The number 3 car is actually going almost beyond the screen. It's starting to...
Yeah,
the camera is starting to follow slowly because of the fact that it tries to maintain the entire group of cars as long as it can on the same view. But if I now select Add Car, it then drags the 3 car to the center of the screen every single moment. So it rotates so that the 3 car is always in the middle. Yeah, I'm gonna mute the whole iRacing. One sec.
Thank you, Glam.
Yeah, shut up, dude. Yeah, there we go. Now the iRacing is muted. So now when I click the Add Car, you can see the camera is always focused exactly in the middle of the screen because it always aims for that specific car. But if I now select Add Group, it tries to fit the whole group that the car in focus is in. It tries to get as much cars on the screen as possible. So now you can see it moved to the right to get the 15 car and the 1 car to the screen at the same time. So that's the difference between the Add Group and Add Car settings in the top right box when you're dealing with the TV cameras. But that's pretty much the only advantage or disadvantage that you could get out of that. Was there anything else? Use key 10x below the key acceleration thing. Is basically, if I now check it, it gives me 22.5 key step factor, or it gives me 10 times faster acceleration than it did without the box. So that's just to cover even more distance in shorter amount of time. But yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that it's yeah, one more thing. You can see right now the cameras are flat. The cameras are changing. The 139, 157 decibels at the peak. It's already peaking with these cars. The car is very, very loud. Yeah, 160 from 130. So the range is pretty bad with the basic cameras with these cars. So now when you look at the 139 through to 160. If you set the blimp camera right now, you can see it's already peaking at 157, even though it's a blimp camera. So the mic gain is always like a car specific gain, TV camera specific gain, and blimp camera specific gain. They're always individuals. So you have to move the slider in order to gain. Now you can see the mic decibels dropped to 141, which is something pretty close to what I would want in a broadcast. So the mic gain now is 23.78, which is way different from a TV camera, but it still gives the same microphone decibel reading than it did with the TV cameras. So now I could switch from the TV camera in the middle of the broadcast back to blimp camera without it all of a sudden breaking everyone's ears. So that's you should always follow, go for such a gain that it always gives the same decibel rating with the desired cars. Naturally, when you're making track-specific cameras, you cannot always know what cars are going to run in when you're doing a broadcast. So sometimes, for example, what happened to me with Brickyard 400 last night, Christ's sake, 2012 Brickyard 400, I actually did not decrease the volume of Impala A car, which meant that every time we had a roll bar view of the Impala A car, the commentator's speech was barely audible because the car was so loud. But majority of the time it works fine, but there, like the F1, the Gen 6, Impala A, those are the few cameras that cause insane amount of noise. Does anyone who is currently spectating, we have quite a bit of guys watching, does anyone have any questions remaining about anything related to any camera angles or saving or something like that? Because I could have used I'm gonna show it right here. I'm not gonna. You now know if I go to TV cameras, let's say right here, oval TV cameras are pretty messy to work around in any place because oval, as you can see, the zoom is set to 16, and still you're seeing quite a huge cars. So you have to use quite a bit of different zoom levels on ovals than you do on road. On road I was using 25 and the car was smallish. Now there's 16 and the car is even bigger than it was with the 25 setting in the road. So you always have to follow some sort of a routine when you're making cameras for your likings. So, but just remember to use significantly smaller number in the zoom when creating an oval cam compared to when you're creating a road cam. So in Okayama I was editing only the existing camera angles. As you can see right now, the Charlotte has TV, one has 3 camera angles, which is stupid because every camera angle can see the car from every point of track. But if you want to add in your cameras of your own, that is as simple as just clicking insert. So these 2 buttons, insert and remove, they are for increasing camera spot and removing camera spot. So this, if I click the 2 camera right here and I move click the move right button, this moves the camera to the inventory, but it does not delete it. However, if I now I'm currently attached to the TV1_2 camera. If I now click the remove, it actually deletes the entire camera from existence. So I don't want to do that. But if you want to, if there's a completely irrelevant camera somewhere or it's broken or something, then feel free to remove it. That's the way to remove it. But at the same time, if you want to create additional camera, just click insert and watch what happens to the top of the screen. Actually, I'm gonna, since it's I'm gonna hit the highest number of camera because otherwise it's gonna create a number 3. Currently, the name of the camera is TV1_4. If I now click insert, it should create TV1_5. Yeah. So now, when I click insert, I'm at the exact same location as the number 4 car is. It has the exact identical values than the camera that I was working with previously. So this is basically when you click the insert button, it basically replicates the camera that you're currently sitting on. But after you click the insert, it automatically moves you to the new camera, which again is exactly the same than the previous camera was. But now I can move. Set the near plane bias to 0, zoom, like that. Now I can move the number 5 camera anywhere I want, and when I go back to the 4 camera, it's still at the same very location. So I didn't move the 4 camera anywhere, but I did move the 5 camera. So that's the easiest way to create a camera. So if you want to create a completely customized camera pack, unlike I did in Okayama where I edited the existing cameras, if you want to create something out of total scratch, you just basically delete all the cameras from the camera group, and you click insert, and you insert your personal camera over there, and when you're done with the first camera, just leave it at where the camera is, click insert, and then move the new camera to the new location, set start and set end values, and then insert a new camera, etc., etc. And that's how you create cameras from scratch. But every time you create, whether it's a new camera that you created customized, or whether it's a camera on the track that you edited from existing pack, the principle is exactly the same. Just click the camera, select it, select the camera. It shows in red every time. Just activate the camera that you want to work with. Set the zoom, set an airplane bias, set microphone gain, and set the start and end values, and that's it. That's the only thing. That's basically, in a nutshell, what you need to when you're working with creating or modifying existing cameras. And by the way, one thing I noticed, yeah, that's the this is a funny part, the checkbox. Use temporary edits. What it means is, I actually in the broadcasts I have to use this one. Why? Let me show. If I wanna, let's say, I'll just follow RJ Williams right now. Currently I'm following, what the hell is that? Oh, it's an antenna. Okay. Currently I'm on board with RJ Williams right now. And if, yeah, now somebody goes for a pass, I'm gonna follow him. Oh, there's another car coming past. I'm following. Okay, right now, let's say right now there's a crash. I stop following the cameras. I don't use the GUI in a broadcast, but I would then select TV camera. I would find the crash that happened, and then now if I would stick with this TV camera all the way up to the next green flag, and I would want to stick to the nose camera and watch forward again, what happens? When I go to the nose camera, boom, I'm staring at the exact same location where I left at the time the crash happened. But let's load up the this is the basic camera angle where it points at. So if I now click the use temporary edits, now if I start following someone using the nose camera, let's see, I'll let it right here, and now I switch to TV camera or any other camera. It can be any camera in anywhere. All you have to do is change the camera group that you're on. I'm switching from nose to, let's say, TV2. Now if I select nose again, it's reset it to where it was. So this is extremely useful tool for broadcasting purpose, because I always have I can pretty much I can adjust zoom on the fly. I can rotate the car however I wish, and when I just switch camera and switch back, it's always by default. So this is the one of the key elements I use when I'm behind the cameras doing Glacier TV broadcasts. This is one of the tools that I always rely on. So I can rotate the cameras freely. I can alter zoom in the TV cameras on the fly, and then when I just switch the TV camera from to another and back, it resets automatically. If it didn't, I would be in trouble. So that's pretty much the bulk of it. I cannot really think of any. I think I went through the position, static, shortcut keys, field of view, near plane bias, mic gain. I went all through that. I went through this, that. Yeah, when we're in the camera group selection window right here, if you want to create a completely new, let's say TV4 camera group, first you have to create, click the create button, then it gives, let's say I go to TV1, TV3 camera right here, and then I click create. Now it says new one. Now I have to rename the new one to TV4, blah, 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 blah. And now I click off, and now you can see the camera group name appeared into the box. Well, now it's too big, so I'm just gonna make a TV4 cam right now. Now you can see the TV4 camera appeared below the camera menu where you were at when at the time I was at TV3. I clicked create, so it created at the bottom below the TV3. So now the TV3, so now the TV4 camera, when I was at the TV3, I was right here at the time I pressed create. So when I pressed create, it created a TV4 group, or actually created a new one, which I then renamed to TV4. But the content of the TV4 group is, by default, it's exactly the same as if you would insert a new camera. When you insert a new camera, it replicates the camera that you were stuck on at the time you hit the insert key. The same thing applies with the groups. If you create a new group, it by default it copies the entire existing camera group for you to work with. But you still have to remember, if you even though I'm currently sitting in TV4 group right now, the camera I'm using that was replicated was cam TV3_0. But this is the important part of it. If I was now to edit this camera within TV4 group, it actually also changes the TV3 group, which has the same camera. So even though you create a new group, if you're using the same camera ID, the TV3_0, it is this very same camera. So the cameras don't get replicated if you create a new group. It just uses the same cameras within the group. So if you want to create a completely separate TV group, you have to first create the group, then go to the camera section and remove manually all the cameras from the inventory, and then start working with the new cameras. Just as a warning, because when I was creating, I think it was Road Atlanta cameras, I created a TV3 camera group, I made a TV4 camera group, and then I started editing the TV4 camera group, and I ended up editing the whole TV3 group in the process. And I almost shot myself in the head after I noticed that I just had used 2 hours of pointless work. So watch out for that when you're creating a new group. Just always be sure to get rid of the existing cameras if you plan on making a completely separate or differing group. Wow, I haven't actually never seen the ambulance lights on. Wow, dude. I've never seen actually that those things have the flashing lights. Woohoo! But that's 2 hours in the broadcast now, so I think it's we can pretty much wrap this up. I don't actually know if the flashing lights are because of the caution, if it's because of the night layout, but I have never seen the flashing lights in the infield cars, so that was actually a pretty nice tweak. If it's a night thing, that's a pretty nice addition, because they are not that visible with the daylight. But yeah, I think that wraps up the tutorial quite well. Since nobody doesn't seem to have any extra questions, we can pretty much wrap this up. So I hope this gave to all the viewers some background information on how to deal with the cameras. If you forgot something and you want to ask something additionally, you can PM me in iRacing forums, or you can reply to YouTube. This video, this post race, my donkey. This tutorial is going to be in my personal YouTube channel, not in the Glacier TV. It's going to be my personal YouTube channel within... I'm actually not sure how long it takes from twitch.tv to be automatically transferred to YouTube, but I'm going to set it right away. So you're able to spot it there in case you want some reruns or something else. So I hope this has been somewhat learning experience to people, and I at least had a blast with watching a few hours of the painting tutorial. That was it, like Andrew Lanning, or who was it, was teaching me how to use pen tool. He taught me like 50 different tricks within half an hour. So I hope somebody who watches this now or in the afterwards in YouTube gets something out of this, but yeah, that's what this was for. And yeah, thanks, Randolph. Let's see if I'll ever make the top split. There's still one qualifying left, but I'm pretty sure there's not going to be 15 guys to pass me. But yeah, so I'm going to switch off the broadcast now, and I hope you enjoyed it.